And so he says, acceptance has been the answer to my marital problems, as though AA has given me a new pair of glasses. You see that? Giving us, what's the new pair of glasses? A different outlook, a new perspective. You know, Max and I have been married now for 35 years. Prior to our marriage, when she was a shy, scrawny adolescent, I was able to see things in her that others couldn't see. Things like beauty. You know, they say beauty is on the inside of the beholder. Yeah. He saw some things in her that nobody else saw. And you know what he did with those things that he saw that nobody else saw? He helped those things to grow within inside her. He helped them to grow. Check this out, though. He says, I can see things like charm, gaiety, a gift for being easy to talk to, a sense of humor, and many other fine qualities he saw in her, didn't he? Huh? Yeah. He says, it was as if I had, rather than a Midas touch, which turned everything to gold, a magnifying mind that magnified whatever it focused on. Remember that if we focus on the problem gets worse. And we focus on the solutions or the answers, we find them though. It's about what am I focusing on? Where am I placing my magic magnifying mind? He says, over the years, as I thought about Max, her good qualities grew, and we were married. How did those things grow? You know how they grew? He watered them in her. I'm sure he did. And all these qualities became more and more apparent to me, and we were happier and happier. But then, as I began to drink, but then as I drank more and more, the alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Remember, this girl was scrawny, shy,
beautiful, charming.
So I don't really know how fine she was. But it was something about her that he saw in her that attracted him to her. Okay? And it's funny. When we get into relationships, because think about this, we don't know this person from Adam and Eve when we meet them. But somewhere we find ourselves attracted to them. What are we attracted to when we find them? Their outer appearance. We are attracted to their humor. We're attracted to their beauty. We're attracted to their booty. You know what I'm saying? We looking at the outside. Is she fine? That's the one. And it's something about those qualities that soon start to fade away, don't they? And I say, she ain't attractive no more. She don't look good no more. I don't want her no more. Or it's that old fly mouth she got a hug. You know what I'm saying? Her humor. Yeah. You know, the short skirt that she had on when I saw her. And I was attracted to that. But after we get together, we be together for a while, those very qualities that attracted me to her, now I don't like no more. Because I looked from the outside first rather than the inside out. Don't nobody go and we get to know their heart and their dreams and their goals and their desires in life. We ain't having that conversation. That come after sex. And somewhere years down the line. Because now we sitting here looking at each other trying to figure out who are you, and she's saying, who are you? Because it was not driven by a desire to know each other. It was driven or an inner desire to know each other. It was driven by an outer desire. Huh? And then he adds alcohol to it. And he says, but then as I drank more and more, the alcohol seemed to affect my vision. Instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects. And the more I focused my mind on her defects, the more they grew. And they just didn't grow, they multiplied. Where in the beginning I only had about 2 things I didn't like about her. Now I got a whole page about her. He says, every defect I pointed out to her became greater and greater. What was he doing?
Looking for a problem.
He was beating her up. He was belittling her. He was slowly, well, let's just read it. And each time I told her she was nothing, she receded a little more in nowhere. The more I drank, the more she wilted. Then one day in AA, I was told that I had the lenses in my glasses backwards. The courage to change in the Serenity Prayer meant not that I should change my marriage. Remember we talked about uprooting? Huh? Those things that we find out after we have planted. See this, and this works. He planted some seeds in his wife. And the result of the seeds that he planted, it caused the tree to do what? To wither. It wilted away. It faded. It stopped producing fruit. Because we see that she produced some fruit because she grew and she grew and she grew. And now he's saying, I won't take up the whole tree. I'm going to pull this tree up. He says, not that I should change my marriage because, you know, that's always the first solution, ain't it? Is to change our marriage. And then he says, but rather I should change myself and learn to accept my spouse as she was. Hard to do.
You talk to him again?
Okay. He says, and I learned to accept my spouse as she was. AA has given me a new pair of glasses. That's difficult thing. He says, AA has given me a new pair of glasses. It has allowed me to look at things from a different perspective. It has allowed me to see things from other people's point of view. And you know what? I know when I'm operating in that. When I can allow you to be who you are, then I have flipped the lenses in my glasses. But when I'm trying to change who you are and make you see where you're wrong.
At what point, okay, in the beginning, he seen it this way, beautiful, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay. After he started back drinking again, that's when he noticed the stuff that was wrong with her, or he said was wrong with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did something had happened before he started looking at her for her to say something to him, or was something going on during that time before he started drinking to make him want to look at her like that?
I don't know.
It's alcohol.
I don't know. All I can go on is what the literature says.
It's alcohol.
The literature says, but as I drank more and more.
Yeah.
So he started drinking somewhere along the line, and those qualities that were so great eventually started to grow. They were there. She was growing. She was shy, and she was an adolescent. But he saw something in each one of them, and he made her probably feel better than she ever had. And her qualities about her grew, and they grew, and they grew. But at some point it said, you started to drink. At some point those qualities, or those defects, became more apparent to him. The reality is they was always there. Whatever it was about her was always there. Whatever it was about you was always there. The literature says that our disease was present long before we ever picked up. We had some defects about ourselves that was already there before we started to drink and get high. Y'all know that? They was already, look back. We was already selfish.
The judgmental and the critical was already there. The drinking just brought it out in him.
Right.
To where he was judgmental and critical of
Right. Remember, if we go back, remember that being an alcoholic was the best thing that ever happened to him. And as a result, he took those qualities and he instilled them into her. He's sober. But as he started to drink, those things started to wither away then. Check this out. He says, instead of continuing to see what was good about my wife, I began to see her defects. Not that she grew some defects. You know, not that she didn't, and she may have added one or two, but he was already seeing what was already there. Remember I told y'all when we met them, it was already there. In the 5 love languages, he said that we were blind by the I'm in love obsession. He says you wasn't bamboozled, you wasn't hoodwinked. She is who she was before you said I do. I was like, dang. But because you were in love, it was covered up. You act like it wasn't there. And remember, I told you the very things that attracted us to them when we were dating. Now that we don't like it now. We don't like it. But you know what? That's the same person. With maybe 1 or 2 other defects added. But the reality, all of that was probably there in the beginning. You just failed to see it. He says, and the more I focused my mind on her defects, the more they grew and multiplied. Every defect I pointed out to her became greater and greater. Each time I told her she was nothing, she receded a little into nowhere. Then he goes into the Serenity Prayer, and he says, I can again focus on my wife's good qualities and watch them grow and grow and grow through the process of AA and having the lenses in my glasses flipped around. I can do the same thing with an AA meeting. The more I focus my mind on its defects, late start, long drunk laws, cigarette smoke, the worse the meeting becomes. But then I try to see what I can add to the meeting rather than what I can get out of it. Remember, I'm selfish because I'm only going to get something rather than take something. He says, but when I try to see what I can add to the meeting rather than what I can get out of it, and when I focus on what's good about it rather than what's wrong with it, the meeting keeps getting better and better. And that's how our life is. You know that? That's how our life is, whether with our mates, whether with with the people closest to us, friendships, relationships, whatever it is, this applies. I got to start figuring out what I can add to this thing rather than what I can get out of it. He said, the more I focus my mind on his defects, talking about a meeting, now take those same defects in a meeting and apply them somewhere else. You follow me? In his case, Max, his wife, he found some qualities about her that he allowed to grow, didn't he? They were already there. They were already there. He says, when I focus on what's good today, I have a good day. And when I focus on what's bad, I have a bad day. If I focus on the problem increases. If I focus on the answer increases. Today, Max and I try to communicate what we feel. Check this out. Rather than what we think. Because I be thinking one thing, and that don't even be what the other person be thinking is. Huh? And so, dealing with feelings, I gotta announce, this is how I feel. Not, this is what I think. Now, the reality is, that which I feel may not even be true to the one that I'm announcing my feelings to. I think to say I think is to accuse. To say I feel is to give them an opportunity to clear that up. And sometimes I was just in my feelings, and it wasn't even the other person's intentions. You know? Look, I feel like when you do this, and they'll say, oh, no, that wasn't, you know what I'm saying? But to just think, this is what it is, and mess it up, don't it? And that's a lot of our problems. We never go to the person that we have a problem with and let them know how we feel. How we feel. That's kind of punkish, ain't it? Especially when you got to go to your mate and tell them, you know, I feel like you hurt my feelings. That's kind of broadish, ain't it?
Yeah.
So we play Mr. Tough Guy, and we only make the problem worse.
We're trying to get back out for that.
And the reality is sometimes we don't get the response we're looking for, and we still throw it off. But he says we try to communicate what we feel rather than what we think. We used to argue about our different ideas, but we can't argue about our feelings. Why?
Because they're real.
That's how you feel. That's how she feels. Now the problem is allowing each other to feel the way they feel. Because I want to change the way you feel.
Yeah.
It's like telling you how to think.
He says, I can tell her she ought not to think a certain way, but I certainly can't take away her right to feel how she does feel. When we deal in feelings, we tend to come to know ourselves and each other much better. He says it hasn't been easy to work out this relationship with Max because the literature says that the hardest place to work the program is at home. That's real, boy. Y'all better read the family afterwards. On the contrary, the hardest place to work this program has been in my own home. Shoot. Told y'all that, didn't he? He says, with my own children, and finally with Max, his wife. It seems I should have learned to love my wife and family first, the newcomer to AA last. But that's kind of different, ain't it? It's a lot easier for me to accept some of the crazy stuff you do than to accept the very people that I say I love. He says, but it was the other way around. I like this. Eventually, I had to redo each of the 12 steps, specifically with Max in mind from the first meeting saying, y'all get this one, I am powerless over, yeah, I guess so. I'm powerless over alcohol and my home life is unmanageable to me. And we can take whoever we want to, whatever thing we want to, and put it in there. I am powerless over, and let that be. See, I figured out that I can work step 1 on anything and on anybody. And he says, now, we don't, I don't always do that well, but he says, and my home life is unmanageable by me to the 12th, in which I tried to think of her as a sick Al-Anon and treat her with love, I would get a sick AA newcomer. When I do this, we get along fine. What is he saying? The same love that I can give a newcomer, Because we give the newcomer what? Allowances, don't we? Huh? We sit and we listen to their feelings. We listen to them share crazy stuff. We listen to them. We accept them just as they are coming through the door. Because the first thing y'all say when a newcomer comes is welcome home. Shit. We go to our own home and just walk in. We won't say hello, how you doing, nothing do. Huh? But he says the same concept of the newcomer. I can work at home. Allow that person, place, or thing to be exactly as the way it's supposed to be.